I have never really known what I was going to be or do with my life. I thought I was going to be a super famous musician in a band for most of my life. And then I got into painting. And then just one day I just decided that I couldn't be an artist anymore because I was around 30. I did not own a car still. I was renting a bedroom, like as often young adults do, they share with friends. But like as you're starting to move more into like late adulthood, renting a room is not what you'd hoped and dreamed of as a child. I always thought I'd have my own apartment. I could decorate it however I wanted. And so I was starting to really put a lot of pressure on myself to be like, okay, I think we have to flip the switch here. So hilarious story. I just quickly Googled what's the most amount of money for the least amount of schooling that I could do to just change everything.
And the answer Google returned was so not in her wheelhouse. Welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the show that is laser focused on inspiring you to start or to scale your side hustle income stream. I'm your host, Joan Possevi. Mellisa Mills did eventually find her stride. She's the founder and CEO of a company now called Millsie, which at the time of this interview was known as Spread'em. The company makes cashew-based dips that look and taste like cream cheese, but aren't. I first discovered her dips at a farmer's market, where I stopped to sample the product and ended up talking side hustles with Melissa's husband. That conversation led me to Mellisa and to the realization that this company started with just $500, a blender, and a bicycle. She couldn't even afford a car at the time. In the fall of 2023, we released a full episode called What It Takes to Build a Multi-Million-Dollar Company from Scratch. I was so impressed by how Mellisa grew the business entirely through earnings, no investors, that about a year later, I invited her to join a business panel I was moderating, where I got to sit down with her in person. This episode pulls together the most valuable lessons and insights from the original conversation, the kind that can help anyone starting or growing a side hustle. Now, here are my top picks for my conversation with founder Mellisa Mills. In this first highlight, we pick up with the result of that Google search. Things were not clicking for Mellisa until she realized that lack of effort was not the problem. If you haven't found your side hustle yet, or you're questioning the one that you're currently doing, this next piece could get you thinking about it in a new way.
Hilarious story. Anyone who knows me knows that this is a terrible fit. But anyway, I just quickly Googled what's the most amount of money for the least amount of schooling that I could do to just change everything, because I'm also, my personality type is very like efficient and maximum. Like I cook on maximum, I drive on maximum. I'm very much a straight line person. One cool thing though about this company has helped me try to enjoy the journey kind of life, which is kind of interesting, but we can talk about that later. But
yeah, so at that point, it's like I want to make mega bucks right away.
Yeah, exactly. Or something, at least to pay my rent and maybe get a car one day was sort of like,
my own place.
Sort of low. Yeah, exactly. And it was cardiac technician, which is what popped up. And I was like, okay, I'm going to become a cardiac technician. It's only 2 years of school. And apparently we need a lot of them. And with the heart disease being like the number one, makes sense. So I went back to school, the VCC. I took calculus, which is so out of my wheelhouse, and chemistry because I had to upgrade. Basically the 1 hour of homework a night turned into about 6 hours of homework for me because it's out. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'd spend 6 hours a night in the library every single night. I passed both courses with a B. Thank you very much. But then I just decided that like, this is not for me. I just don't know. But I was at a moment where I just sort of like threw myself down on the ground and said, okay, what then? What am I supposed to be or do? Like, I don't feel like anything I do connects or is easy or feels like I'm in the flow of life. And so I said, screw it. I'm going to start making dips because I have always been very passionate about whole foods, making good food out of very simple ingredients. I've always had a knack for flavors and combinations and things, and people love my dips. So I thought, okay, I'll sell these at the farmer's market. Whatever money I get from that, I will use, because I was working minimum wage style jobs. You don't have a lot of free income. So whatever money, I'll go on a trip and I'll ponder my existence. I'll just get a lightning strike moment. I'll just throw all of my expectations about life out the window, and I'll just go into this trip with an open mind and try to figure out what makes me feel good and where do I feel like I can contribute with who I am.
At this point, are you doing the farmers markets with your dips?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
started. So that was like the catalyst of like how I even decide, like, how do you find a farmer's market? How do you even become a farmer's market vendor? You know, it was like nothing. I'd never even really been to a farmer's market because I couldn't even really afford to shop at a farmer's market in the past. Maybe as an event to go buy an apple and something of strawberries, but not like as a shopper.
Finding something that resonates with you is one thing, but a viable side hustle requires people who want it and will pay for it.
From there, I was just delighted and elated every single day for the first time in my life for a very long time, where I just really loved being in the moment. I wasn't thinking about the future or dwelling on my shortcomings or how come I'm not successful and all these things. I was truly just having fun. And it was flying off the shelves. Like literally, I wasn't even in stores necessarily yet. And people were calling me to meet me in Starbucks parking lot saying like, I need 20 of these. And I'd literally go there and bring them and they'd give me the money. And it kind of felt like a drug deal in a sense of like that was happening all the time. And people were literally emotional about it. I'm scared I won't see you again. And this stuff has changed my life. Like either I have a lot of allergies, I can't enjoy food, really normal stuff. Or at the time too, when we first started, there wasn't this explosion of gluten-free and vegan and all this sort of restrictive eating things. So we were really hitting the spot for so many people where they felt like for this sort of section of people, they felt like they could just be normal, just enjoy food for the sake of enjoying food, which becomes a real thing when you end up having a problem with allergies or food sensitivities. Like you can be in a lot of pain for a really long period of time and it can cause a lot of problems. And to be able to, I don't know, to give people that element of sort of humanity and joy back. And then also to be knowing that everything we make is truly really good. And it tastes like it's naughty for you or whatever that thing is, but it's the closest thing to all whole food ingredients. I guess it's because also my intention for what I'm doing truly is like, I just want to do good and I just want to have fun and I just want to contribute to something. And because that is me and that is how everything about what we do goes through that lens first. It's really easy to make good tasting food or ethical food or environmental choices or supporting other things because that's just me. So I guess a tip for people who are starting a side hustle and want to grow it is like really spend a lot of time figuring out who you are and not just your strengths, like maybe you're good with numbers or maybe you're friendly and so you can do sales. But truly, like, if money were no object and if you could be spending your time doing anything, what would it look like? Would you be surrounded by lots of people? Would you just be yourself mostly? And looking at those things, I think because I know myself so well, because as an artist, I spent a lot of time alone, it can then blossom.
As you know, I am a huge fan of farmers markets. They're one of the best places to test a wide variety of side hustle ideas, talk directly with customers, and refine both your product and your pitch. And even now, with Melissa's company doing mid-seven figures in revenue, they still show up with a booth. Here's why.
And then we just started getting into stores because, again, people were like, okay, how can I find you again? Like I need to know that there's going to be some sort of consistency in availability. And so, I biked around to 5 stores that were within my East Van neighborhood.
And this first round, were these places buying them wholesale or were you putting them in there on consignment?
No, it was definitely wholesale. I'd never entertained consignments. I always knew they would sell. And if they didn't, I would just do a demo or whichever to get people tasting them just because I'd had such good success at the farmer's market. I mean, literally could have turned the farmer's market into a very well-paying full-time gig for myself. I just wanted to do that forever, which I thought I did. We still do the farmer's markets. They're great for all kinds of reasons, but mostly the feeling you get from being at the farmer's market, the vendors and the people and the appreciation and just getting it. Is just something that you need when you start to grow your company, I think.
And actually, I was going to ask you about that because of the success of your company. I was surprised that you're still at the farmers markets, but then I would imagine that's also part beneficial from a research standpoint and talking to customers one-on-one.
Yeah, research for sure, testing new flavors, but truly just actually getting people, mostly we do it for selfish reasons. It's not necessarily for the money aspect as much as it is for the appreciation that you get from being there. It just fills you up so much that you can then go out and brave the other stuff that happens, whether it's a machine that breaks down or whether it's trying to move into a new facility and trying to balance all the costs and people calling in sick or people leaving a bad review because they don't know, you don't know what you put into it, or just all of those things that really start weighing you down where you're like, why do I do this again? Nobody appreciates me. But then you go to the farmer's market, you're like, oh yes, they do. Okay, I can do this.
A lot of people assume that you need outside money to grow, investors, loans, or a big cash cushion. Not true. Mellisa explains the choices she made that have allowed the business to grow using its own profits, which is a vital lesson if you're building a side hustle without deep pockets. You said that you were happy to do that the rest of your life. What made that shift to say, okay, we can really scale this now?
I think still it was just people. I didn't even think about scaling. And plus, I'll just note that I didn't know how to do any of this. Literally just Googled and took courses as I went. I got QuickBooks or whichever. And then I actually literally went to Langara College and did a course on QuickBooks and just all the things that we do. And then we just kind of moved into a commissary. And then people kept on driving. Could you get into Whole Foods? Could you get into this place? I was like, okay. I just kind of did it based on people, the customers
feedback.
Telling me
it
where
seems
they
like
wanted
that was, propelling you along. Because my understanding is that it's one thing you can sell product, food that you've made out of your kitchen at a farmer's market, but when you step into retail, you can't do that anymore, right? So you had to find an external commercial kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. So it was also very interesting because of how things were lining up, because normally you can't make dips at home either, but I also couldn't afford a commissary kitchen at the time when I started this company. But it just so happened it was the Vancouver Coastal Health guy, forget his name, Brian, actually, I think. It was his last year. And because our stuff was fermented and the pH was so low, it was sort of in a gray area where it kind of fit into the category that can be made at home. But because it had a fresh element, it was also maybe couldn't be made at home. So they came and inspected our house and how I would do it or whichever. And he said, you know what? I can let you do that. And honestly, this company would not have started had I needed to get a commissary in the beginning, because I literally had, when I say I had $500, that's truly all that I had to start this company.
Maybe define a commissary kitchen for us.
Yeah. So it's a shared kitchen space. You generally get maybe a table and a shelf and a very small portion of it, maybe a refrigerated spot if you need it. And you can go, it's open kind of 24 hours or early until late or whichever. And it becomes your own little factory, which I really love the commissary life, because you are around a lot of other people doing the same thing. So you can learn a lot from each other, share suppliers or chat about difficult stuff or share wins. And it was actually a really beautiful community, I would say. Also, even though I am very friendly and people always think that I'm an extrovert, I am a loner through and have been since a very young age. I maybe had one friend, in and out of one friend only. And I spent so much time alone that it was was good for me to get into a space where it was easy to be around people, because I'm not the type of person that would seek that sort of thing out. And you just learn so much, and it was actually really great.
People going through similar struggles and challenges.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was so great to be able to share, or even hands, to be like, I need help loading this truck. Somebody help me. And then somebody would come, or, hey, I'm not going to be there and I'm getting a delivery. Could you make sure that it's received and it's put in a cooler, or that they gave me the right amount of stuff? And you just have that extra support without having to pay an employee. And it's all people who get it too, because they'd be like, oh, could you do that for me? And they just are very, very supportive. And commissaries in Vancouver are particularly expensive, very, very expensive. And
how much do they rent for per hour or per month? You probably do it by, how do they work?
Gone up quite a lot, but I think it was a couple $1,000s. It's not a little. So if you're selling $6 dips or $10 dips, you think about how many you have to sell to have a commissary.
Yeah. So when you started with the 500 in the farmer's market, that allowed you to test your recipes, the procedures, the demand. You finally get into some stores. You've got enough revenue coming in then that you can justify being in the commissary.
Yeah, exactly.
And so in these early days, by now you've got QuickBooks, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of this question for the benefit of people starting out in those first couple of years. What profit margin were you needing to maintain in order to feel that it was even worthwhile, that there was enough profit there to grow the company? Or was that even a consideration at that point?
To be honest, I don't like, when I see numbers, I make this joke, they look like shapes. I don't focus on the numbers at all. I mean, I can do math, of course, that's a funny joke I say to myself, but I never put I never put numbers first. I always put people and quality first and figure out how to make it work. So I was actually just lucky in the sense that my margins were really great when I first started buying things from like No Frills and Costco. And so that's probably the most expensive those ingredients are ever going to be. And so then as you scale, you kind of build in the profit margin because you're going to get less. You're going to pay less for certain ingredients and packaging as you can start to buy in volume. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be that much more volume when you start buying at like grocery stores for your ingredients or things like that. So I'd say there, but I would say that what I've learned now is that a very healthy profit margin is probably around, and it has to be margin, not markup. Make sure you find a margin calculator and not a markup calculator because it is slightly different. And probably at 50, 55 or 60%, depending on the vision of your company, specifically in packaged goods. If you want to move into natural chains, you're going to have to allocate a percentage, 30% markup, that margin that they're going to put on your product going out. So you might lose that. And then distribution is going to be another 26 to 35%, say. And then you'll have your direct accounts then where you're maintaining that. And some people just decide to go straight to Costco's or Club. But those are people typically who have outside money and who maybe proven their concept and then either went and got investors or have family money that they can then set up a proper factory to then support the products going out the door at those volumes.
Yeah, because in the case of something like Costco, that first order is going to be huge and require big bucks, right?
Yeah, exactly, for inventory and such. And also you got to know somebody who understands Costco and truly understands how it all works. Because people always think, oh, if I get a Costco account, everything's solved. But then if it doesn't sell, then they would take that off of your initial PO or whichever. So you could end up making nothing truly. Right. It really does matter. So you have to do your research. And I do think if you are getting into packaged goods, it's important that you do start somewhat small. And people always want to go really fast and get in all the places. But the cool thing about what we did is that I grew the business as the demand grew and really focused on 5 or 6 stores a year and just really paid them a great deal of attention, whether that be through demos and just thoughtful community events nearby and sharing it and getting the word out, because we grew it that way kind of slowly within our means. We've never gotten outside investment. We just used the profits of the company to grow. And we stayed in that commissary for a very long time. I think we made our first $1 million and we were still in a commissary.
Wow. It sounds like it wasn't a matter of setting these goals or expectations, saying, this is how quickly I want to grow it, but rather it was more being pushed by the marketplace and your clientele.
Yeah, exactly. And because I never had the expectation of needing to be $100 million company to be that, find my worth as a human being, or to be $100 million because then once I have all this money, I can do what I really want to do.
Right.
I was really having fun, or am still really having, even when it's really difficult and I can't sleep at night, or there's a problem to solve that feels so outside of my capacity. I just spend some time thinking about it, and I generally always come up with the right answer.
Can you think of one of those things that kept you up at night?
So many things. I mean,
where do I start?
Sometimes making mistakes with money and it not working out or getting the ROI. And that, I think all the stresses that have ever really kept me up have definitely been around funding. Mm-hmm. And am I making the right choice? Should I get investors, or should I just keep trucking on the way that we're doing things? Am I doing it right? Questioning that all the time is stuff that kind of creeps up on you at 3 a.m. Suddenly you're like, subconscious, why? No, I don't want to talk about this right now.
Yeah. No, we can talk about this when we get into the office. I need my sleep now.
Yeah.
Mellisa noticed early on that some people burned through money on the wrong things and didn't last. Here's what she did differently to not only survive, but thrive. Well, how did you break through into Whole Foods? And I should mention, for those listening outside of North America, that's a big deal. They're a major grocery store chain.
Yeah. Whole Foods was actually not that hard for us.
They knew a good thing when they saw it.
Yeah, the criteria, dips are a pretty important category in the sort of fresh section. There are people buy a lot of dips. Most people who do like dips buy between 3 and 5 dips per shop. A lot of people buy at least one, a month, almost every household. And so dips are a pretty big velocity driver in the grocery store. And there hadn't been a lot of innovation there for a pretty long time. You've got hummus, you got hummus toppings, then you have basically just different kind of cultural plays off hummus and flavorings and things like that. But nothing had really been done. And so for the Whole Foods, our ingredients are so clean, the cleanest of the clean, that it almost made perfect sense. Now, also the fact that I also worked at Whole Foods in the produce department. So I did kind of know a few people there, and it kind of helped because, if you worked at Whole Foods, you're a Whole Foods alumni, tend to be well supported, I would say. Yeah.
So that first order with them, was it for the one store then?
No, it was for all the ones in Western Canada. So I think it's just in BC. I think there's maybe 6 or 7 stores. And then once we got into distribution, then we got to go into the ones in Ontario. But I'd say for the first 3 or 4 years, we were only in the BC ones. They changed the rules a lot since then because it was bought by Amazon. But literally, I didn't have a distributor when I got Whole Foods. I was delivering out of the back of my van.
So you got a van at this point?
Yeah. And I was delivering out of the back of there, and our commissary was very close to, it's very central to all the places. But at the same time, I still was not buying boxes like a lot of people go. One thing I noticed of the people who didn't last in the commissaries very long because their businesses did not sustain sales was people always go out and they buy things they think they're going to need and how they think it's going to be done instead of using what they have first. And so a lot of times people will go, a lady, she had a little catering company, or not catering, she was making like baby food or something. But what she got a loan from somewhere, and first thing she bought was a car. I was like, oh, that seems like a bad idea. And she lasted maybe 6 months. Other people go and they buy all the nicest stuff, all the nicest packaging, all the nicest boxes, all the stuff that actually doesn't make you any money. And for us, I didn't even buy boxes. I reused boxes for packing my deliveries in, probably for like 2 years or more, because I'm like, boxes are expensive. They're like 50 cents to $1 at the volumes I could buy. That's a lot to me. And I was always trying to spend as little money as possible, except for in my actual ingredients. But when it came to packaging and all the other element gloves or whatever I was using, I was basically trying to get it for free if I possibly could.
And it wasn't until you land an account, say like Whole Foods, that you actually had to leave the product in the box.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't even at Whole Foods. I was reusing. So Spud at the time was one of my customers, and we had a small agreement where they had another company called Mainland Milk, and they would deliver. So they became my first distributor in a sense. They would deliver because they were delivering fresh juices to some local natural chains, and they would deliver my stuff to those natural chains for me for only $5 a drop.
Oh, wow.
$5, which was amazing. Yeah. And so I was there basically 2 days a week dropping off my little boxes of stuff and with the invoice for these other places. And they always went through, because they had their grocery business as well, so many boxes that were basically untouched of other people's products, cauliflower, lemon juice, whatever it was, inside their box container. And so I would grab the best boxes out of there that were basically untouched. I would take them back with me, and then I would use those and just spread them kitchen or whatever on the outside. And I did that for a really long time, like a long time. Yeah. And most people wouldn't do that. But I think this is where being without money, I guess, for a really long time, I learned how to still go on with my life without ever lacking anything. A lot of times when you're poor or however you want to call it, they either just don't do things and just keep dreaming of how they can do something, and they only work within their means. But I always had a knack for finding how to make things work and still getting to do all the things I wanted to do, but basically with no money at all.
It sounds to me like there's this underlying belief that I can do it, I can make it happen. And then the question becomes, okay, how can I?
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to, I don't have the money, so I can't, and giving up.
Yeah, exactly. Because I guess I had all that experience first of all, with myself, trusting myself and knowing myself very well. Secondly, I always had this belief too that the universe is everything you need is here. Can you have the awareness to see it? And it might not always look how you think it's going to look. So be open to how it may appear. I mean, that sounds kind of like a weird rhyme. I don't know how I did that.
That is, Mellisa, I live by that. And that's why I encourage people to not, too many people just set goals when they can see how they can create it, how it'll manifest. But to me, that's a little bit more of a to-do list. When you set a big goal, something that you'd love to have, do, or be, like you're trading your life for this, for whatever way you're spending your day. So make it a big dream and stay focused on that end result, because just like you said, you don't know how it's going to show up. You think it might be there because you need to turn left here. And the universe is going, no, here, go over here. It's over right. So it's not like a straight line trajectory from where I start to where I end up. But we need to keep our mind focused on that end result, because some of the things that happen, and you tell me if you've experienced this, some of the things that happen appear to be negative in that moment. We judge them as something bad or not good, but it turns out that's exactly what needed to happen in order for us to take the next step. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I think it also runs into who you are, right? What are you willing to do, or how are you willing to step outside of who you are, your comfort zone, and what are you willing to do? Like literally, I didn't have a car when I was delivering to Donald's. That was in New Westminster. So I packed up my reusable bags and I took the bus and the streetcar, and these were like 50 pounds. Like these were so heavy. At the end, when I got there, I was like, that was dumb. But like that's what I was willing to do to get the job done. And I think that's one of the character traits of myself personally that have made this so possible for me, is that I don't shy away from hard work. And when there's no other way to get there, then you just put one foot in front of the other. And sometimes that means quite literally, and you take it there yourself.
Yes. You jumped on the bus and made that delivery.
I did. And they're one of our greatest customers, and we have a really great relationship with them to this day, just because of how much interaction we had and the effort that I was willing to put into that. And I guess we had grown so organically, but also quickly. We got up to 60 stores, and I still didn't have a distributor. I was still delivering it basically myself out of the little van.
How many years was that after you first went into that first store that you grew it to 60?
Oh, that was probably about in a year or 18 months or so, like pretty quick. Because the thrill, I'm also kind of a adrenaline junkie. I used to do a lot of fast sports and cliff jumping, and I just love that, that feeling. And so you're getting a positive response, so you just keep pushing that button, right? And so, I was just out there every day, kind of like after the deliveries or when I was in production. Like I was still also, mind you, doing everything myself. I didn't even really I hired maybe one employee. I had only one, and we were making a lot of stuff and hand stickering, labels, hand filling, mixing, all that stuff.
Everything.
Yeah. So I was basically doing all of that. And then I do deliveries one day a week or whichever. And then I would be out there handing off samples, packs, product in a little card, and some little tasting things to potential new retailers all along. And I would say that thrill was sort of the thing that kind of kept driving. And then we got Save on Foods. I guess Save on Foods was a pretty big deal for us.
Yeah.
Because, they have a lot of locations, and it is more like a mass grocery store, conventional grocery store. So to be in a store like that really did feel like, well, I'm in a real product now.
If you're listening, Mellisa, please forgive me. This part reminds me of the fable of the tortoise and the hare. Building big and fast isn't always the smartest or most lucrative path. Year after year, Mellisa has been winning with the slower, steadier tortoise approach.
And even though the mass stores are all jumping on sort of this local, buy local thing, you're important to them, but truly they don't make a lot of money off you, even if you are number one in your category, but you only have like 2 or 3 products in the store. So sometimes you can make just from a vendor or like a supplier's perspective, you can make just as much money by focusing on, you know, a 7-chain store and just putting in a little bit more effort. You can make close to the same amount of money or a little bit under, there's not that fear of getting delisted of any moment or like shuffling around. And like for me, one thing I've learned is that is definitely something that kind of keeps you up at night, or it's an added stressor that doesn't necessarily have to be there. And I would say to people who are getting into grocery or CPG in particular to appreciate and really relish in those smaller community stores and the ability you have to affect change so quickly in those stores, because there's peace of mind associated with that actually is valuable as you start to grow your company. And there's just some things you can't control. And it kind of, you know, it adds a stress to you that is it worth it or not?
What's CPG?
Oh, it's consumer packaged goods. Okay. Consumer packaged goods. Yes.
When did you hire your first person? What did they do?
I think they helped me sort of sticker lids, and they helped me fill the containers. I hand scooped it for far too long, I will admit. I finally got a little filling machine, and so you couldn't really do it on your own. So I hired him to help put the tubs in the machine and push the button, and then we put the lids on after. And then eventually, I think after that, I guess that was year 2 or 3. And then I hired another person to help me mix it so that I could not be mixing all the time and focus a little bit more on growing the business. And I guess in a way, I would say that people who want to scale and grow a business and they're very business minded about what they're doing, I would say I'm pretty unique in that I wasn't business minded. I was actually doing it for the human experience of this whole thing, that I probably did it wrong for that. If you're looking for personal development, I'm doing it right. If you're looking for how to scale and grow a business, I'm probably not the best person to ask in the short term, but probably I think so in the long term I am. Just going to take a little bit longer.
And while I know there's been those challenges and sleepless nights, it's also been a lot of fun journey along the way in those 8 years. So yeah, maybe somebody could have accomplished what you did in 4 years, but look at all the other benefits that you've done by letting it grow more or less organically.
Oh, huge. And I would even say that it's interesting because we did see a big cull of products in the last year or so after COVID, and just like people putting a lot of money in something, having an idea, a theory of how it would all play out, and then it not working and going bankrupt or leaving the sector, and just because they were never making money. So like we've literally been profitable since the very first day that we started this, and we've kept that mindset throughout. And also it is a long game. A lot of times people want to be rich overnight, and it just isn't. And there's a lot of value in actually understanding the market. And I would say one thing I am obsessed with is customers and how people use the product and why they love it. And I talk with people all the time about that, and I make sure that everything goes through that filter. And I think that is really what's going to have the longevity of the product through the ups and downs and of the economy, or dips are on trend and then they're not, and plant-based is on trend and then it's not. And then there'll be a new thing that's on trend, and being able to weather, having the foundation and the vision to weather whatever trends come through, because we're just a good product. We're at $3 million is where we're at today, and we're hoping to get to $6 million by the next 18 months or so with our U.S. export.
Awesome. And you built that 20,000 square foot facility with that growth in mind. You've got room to grow with that now.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Nice.
Definitely. Yes, we have so much room. We're just waiting.
When Mellisa mentioned $3 million in revenue, that was back in the fall of 2023. They're now well into the mid seven figures. And by the way, if you don't feel like a business person, that's okay. Neither does Mellisa. So clearly, that's not a prerequisite for success.
I think if I could add value to somebody who's listening, who is just like trying to figure it out or doesn't quite know, or they think they're onto something and then something doesn't work out and they're contemplating going forward. Or even I have so many people who are like lawyers, but they want to do something and they want to make croissants, or they always chat with me. And I would always just say that as long as your intention truly is to contribute something, whether that be, I was just reminded, I got to see this triathlete. I forget what his name is. He's an Olympic triathlon competitor. And he had an amazing expression that he said that he was expressing himself through sport. And I always think about that, where when I start thinking about this too much as a business, which is very easy to do, it's very competitive. There's all these business people around and I feel like I'm not a business person. I always am reminded, because it really resonated with me, expressing myself through dips or expressing myself through this business should be, or what makes me feel connected. And I wanted to sort of share that with other people in that really concise way, that as long as you're expressing yourself, your hopes, your dreams, the thing that you're passionate about through whatever side hustle that you're hoping to turn into a main thing, as long as it's sort of a piece of you that you're contributing to the world, there's value in it. You have perspectives that nobody else has. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a protein bar or a hair salon or something that's seemingly saturated at this moment, your vision or through your lens is value enough. And there will be hurdles along the way. And there will be things where you just think that it's not working, and that there's two ways of seeing that. It could be that, yeah, that particular way isn't working, but to keep your end vision in mind,
Yes.
and be open to other ways of executing whatever it is that you're trying to push forward. But also, I had a Russian personal trainer for a short period of time after I was pregnant, and I was trying to get my body back in shape. And he said to me, because I'm like, this is too hard, I said to him, and I'm like, I just don't think I'm meant to be this way or whatever. And he's like, or is it test to how bad you want it? And I was just like, I really like that too. And so expressing yourself through whatever it is that you're doing, that lens, and like when the going gets tough, be open to other ways of still getting to that end result. But also sometimes you have to persist through the resistance that is part of the journey.
Yeah, breaking through your comfort zone. If you could go back to the startup days, what advice would you give yourself? Like, what would you whisper in the ear of 2015 Mellisa?
Trust yourself. Don't ever think that you're not the right person for the job. Don't ever think that somebody can add more value than you can, that you are valuable and what you're doing is important, and to have fun. Don't be so hard on yourself, and don't be so competitive in that way that is through the lens of you're not valuable. Being competitive is obviously fun and is part of it all, but do it through the more positive lens of just trying to be your personal best and live your life through this experience, and don't compare yourself.
Compete, but don't compare.
Yeah.
Since this interview, Spread'em has been rebranded to Millsie, a change driven by growth, clarity, and expanding footprint in the United States. One of the things I appreciate most about Mellissa's story is that she didn't really know anything about farmers markets, building a business, or really what she was stepping into when she started. And over the years, new problems and challenges kept showing up, as they always do. But she handled them with a simple belief. She'd figure it out. I truly admire that. If you haven't already, consider adopting that belief. You have far deeper reservoirs of talent, ability, and resources than you realize. So the next time you're faced with a challenge that feels insurmountable, instead of saying, I just don't know, or I can't figure this out, try asking a different question. If I did know the solution, what would it be? What would that look like? Or how could this actually work in my favor? I promise you that shift alone will serve you well. Well, that's a wrap for today. If our chats are sparking your entrepreneurial spirit and providing valuable insights, consider showing your support by visiting sidehustlehero.com/support. That's where you can shoot me a virtual coffee. It's a real thing and a fun way to give the show a caffeinated thumbs up. Thank you so much. In the episode description, you'll find a link to Melissa's LinkedIn, Millsie's website, and our full show notes, which live at our website, sidehustlehero.com. While there, be sure to grab a copy of my 28-page guide called Smart Start, From Idea to It's Live in 7 Steps, a beginner's guide to launching your side hustle with confidence. It's free for now, but not forever, at sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying what you're seeing in this podcast, it would be so appreciated if you would take a moment and add your comment, share the episode, and please subscribe. It'll let others know that there's valuable content here to help them start or grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.